Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, that's right. We're doing something a little different.
Oh, we got to clap then. I mean, that's what we always do, right? Good job, Jessie Coffield.
Receive it for Jessie
did a great job.
But everyone, you are watching The Sweat, presented by DraftKings here on Bally Sports Network. I am Emerson Lotzia. We got Reed T. Fowler here. We got Steve Buchanan here. Jessie Coffield will be roaming around the studio. Right. She will be going one-on-one with Amari Cooper in this show today.
Fighting her?
It's fantastic. No, not like that. Okay. Talking football.
Okay.
And also, we have a boatload of analysts to get everyone's lineup set here. DFS, sports betting galore.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of fantasy, how about another week? We've got a football millionaire contest, fantasy football millionaire contest. Head over to the DraftKings lobby, everyone. Take a shot at the top prize, $1 million. Only costs $20 per entry. You have less than an hour to get those lineups in. And if that wasn't enough motivation, a win today would earn you a seat to our DraftKings Tournament of Champions live final. It's the ultimate DFS contest for the best of the best in fantasy. Listen, time is running out to qualify here, so get on top of it because that ring could be yours. It could be on your meaty sausage fingers.
Wow.
All you have to do is win it, and you get another $1 million too. So you could win like a couple $1 million if you're really good at this over the next month. Yeah, I know. I love your fingers. Anyway, Steve Buchanan, Reed T. Fowler, and we got Julian Edlow here virtually. So we're going to get to all the DFS stuff coming up, but we're going to start with Early Edge, where you guys give us your favorite bets here on this Week 15 main slate. Reed and Steve, you guys are getting a little weird today. You're doing a couple teasers, so hook me up with yours, Steve.
That's absolutely not weird for me. I mean, that's actually on par
it actually
for what I normally do.
Yes.
The problem is when it comes to weird, it's like, what number are you going to get this teaser at? Because it won't stop moving around, right? So you can say you can get the Cardinals at -6.5. That stayed the same. The Green Bay Packers game is just all over the board, right? When I talked to our producer, Tom Glennon, great guy, I was like, you get him down to half a point. That's no longer possible because now the Packers are up to -9. So we have to take them at -3. Whatever, because it's likely that Lamar Jackson's not playing in this game, right? So now we have Huntley under center, which, we talked about in our last show here, Reed. Actually like him better to win, to stay in this game with Huntley, because if Lamar Jackson was playing with a bum ankle, how much is he really going to do? So I like with Huntley back in there. But that being said, I still like this teaser here. The Packers have been one of the best covered teams in the league to begin with. The Cardinals, which have no problem against this Lions team, who are down like 1 million people with COVID issues. No DeAndre Swift, no Williams or anything like that. They don't even have an RB1 on this team at this point. Not that they're going to be running because it's going to be playing from behind. But this just feels like a really strong teaser in my opinion. So Cardinals -6.5. Green Bay, not half a point anymore, -3.
Jules, how strong is this teaser in your eyes, dude?
I mean, I like all the pieces. Like Steve said, it's tough to do this when everything is constantly a moving target. So you will prefer this if it's just Green Bay to win. But if Lamar Jackson's going to be out of action and more guys going on the COVID list for Baltimore, particularly that secondary continuing to get dinged up, which should mean a big game for somebody like Devontae Adams. Getting the Packers on the road by a field goal and a teaser, that's a lot, but here we are. I can't really argue with it.
Can you argue with it?
No, you can't.
Yeah, I mean, I like that tease. Green Bay is going to be one part of that, and this number is moving around, like Steve mentioned, from 6.5 earlier in the week. Now it's up to 9. So you want it, getting in early. Sometimes, in this case, it's been a weird week because usually getting those early looks is what you want. This week, you probably want to wait. But even if you wait, these numbers, right, are going to fluctuate so much. And so Green Bay, you could have easily got them at sort of a pick 'em in the beginning of the week. Now, like Julian has mentioned, you're getting them at that field goal on the road. I do like them still. You talk about that secondary, Julian. Jimmy Smith is now out. They have 3 guys on that secondary who are completely gone, injured, not going to play. And their offensive line, although they're getting healthier for Baltimore, is not great. And when you're Green Bay, you're actually getting guys back, right? Jay Alexander is back. You're getting some guys healthier on the defensive side. So that definitely helps for that. The other part of this teaser for me, guys, is Cincinnati up to +9. Look, I think in terms of just them as an outright underdog is fine. But again, when Cincinnati, we know this to be true, guys. Cincinnati, if they're leading, they're a great team. Yep. If they're coming from behind, it is tough to trust them. So getting this insurance at +9, obviously above, through the key numbers of 7, that's the part that I want to go to. The Cincinnati defense also struggles a little bit. Their defensive line is a little bit weary. So I like teasing them up to +9 because I do think they could win this, but I want that insurance. Again, that teaser is at -120.
Jules, how do you feel about this teaser here from Fowler?
In terms of the Bengals leg, I like it. I think that Denver is in a good position to win this game at home. I think they are being a little overlooked, and that's why this number has kind of grown in their favor. These two teams have the same record. They're fighting for the same thing, that AFC playoff spot. So I think that Denver is the favorite to win the game for a reason. But once you get this over a possession, anything 8.5 or better, I think that Cincinnati will be in the game. So I do like the Bengals as a teaser leg today.
Bukes, why didn't you go in this direction for this teaser?
Well, see, we have another section on this show called The Underdogs. We're going to talk about the Bengals some more. So I wanted to, spread the love a little bit here in this one, right? That's professional.
Way to spread it out. You are very, very professional television
but the public, all right, let me speak. The public are big on the Bengals. You look at the numbers, the amount of bets and everything. 72% of the handle is on the Bengals at +3, 69% of the bets. And then even on the money line, 85% of the handle, 73% of the bets on the Bengals in this game against the Broncos. Here's the problem with the Broncos. They are a great running team. So that means they play well when they're ahead. It all shifts when they're playing from behind, and like kind of Reed mentioned here, that's where I like them in this spot here. If the Bengals can get a lead, then you have to rely upon Teddy Bridgewater, who is just an interception machine when they're playing from behind. Almost 95% of his interceptions have come when the Broncos are playing from behind, so I really like this spot for the Bengals.
And look at the Broncos, too. Is they're playing teams, and they're beating teams that they should, right? Yep. 38 points against the Lions, but then when we try to trust them against the Eagles, they lay an egg and they put up 13. That was back in Week 10, right? They play well against Dallas, put up 30 points, right? And so, how do you figure out this Denver team is we just don't know. So that's why trusting Denver a little bit, even at home, is a little shaky.
Yeah, and Cincinnati, 4-2 on the road this season, has had multiple surprising victories on the road. And speaking of the AFC North, that's where we go for your best bet today, Jules?
We do, and Steve knows what it is. We've talked about it all week on the Unreasonable Odds podcast. Got my hands dirty and gross with an AFC North money line last week, and that was the Browns, who survived against the Ravens. And I'll do it again this week. I'm going to take the home Pittsburgh Steelers. I took them earlier in the week, wrote them up at +2 and +110 on the money line. Now they're slight favorites, but -115 on the money line is fine by me. I think the wrong team opened favored in this game. I think Tennessee has a much better long-term outlook in the AFC, but they need to get healthy first. They don't have those bodies to put up points on offense right now, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that in Pittsburgh in this game. They can run the ball, but they can't make the plays to really put up points. And they, at Jacksonville's lowest, they put up 20 points in that game. So I don't think it's going to be pretty for Tennessee offensively in Pittsburgh. The Steelers have been still a pretty good home team this season. They have 10 days off from the Thursday night loss to the Vikings, where they got embarrassed for 3 quarters, but finished strong. I think they're going to take some of that momentum, play for their playoff lives at home here, run the ball through Najee Harris, use Deonte Johnson in the passing game, and the Steelers find a way to win a grinder here with a low point total.
Steve, I feel like Jules is on to something here, because Pittsburgh has been a home underdog 9 times since 2016, 6-3 overall in those games.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of love for Pittsburgh in this game. This line has been flip-flopping between 2, between 1. It's currently at 1 right now. The thing that I just can't get over is I don't think that the Steelers are going to be able to run efficiently against this Titans team. They are very vulnerable through the air. They are pretty good on the ground at defending against the run. Harris has really taken a step back since his really dominating first half, and now he's kind of gone back to, struggling on the ground to run the ball. I just think this is a good spot for the Titans. They're getting a bit healthier. Sure, they don't have Derrick Henry, but Julio Jones back in the mix. While he didn't have a dynamic game last week, it does change the defensive scheme against the Titans now, because they never had that solidified wide receiver 1 for weeks when Brown was out and Jones. So I think that does opens up a little bit more for the Titans, and they've been running well on the ground. You can run against the Steelers, allowing an average of 5 yards per carry this season. I think this is a good spot for the Titans.
Well, Steelers on the far healthier side of this one, but Tennessee here coming off an inspiring shutout victory against Jacksonville. Jacksonville team that quit on its head coach. Nothing is more inspiring than that.
Yeah, I don't know which side of the inspiration you're on, with Tennessee getting the job done. And look, Julian's on the right side, right? 84% of the cash right now on the money line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this is a team that is theoretically still in this, guys. The Steelers are still in the hunt, and the Titans are a little bit better, obviously, with their record. But if you're the Steelers and you're believing that this is, and truly is, Ben Roethlisberger's last go at it, this is a team that you can definitely get a leg up on. So I don't mind it at all. I actually think this goes over as well. I think a lot of people are looking at this game as a slog out fest that's going under, but we've seen both of these defenses too put up a lot, like give up a lot of points. And you look at the Steelers defense, that's the only part that scares me a little bit, but not really. It's that their adjusted DVOA rank is 29th in the NFL. So their defense, they're susceptible to these big time throws, to giving up a lot of points. But I think the Steelers side is the side you want to be on.
Like the Steelers are on the brink, and that's just the kind of week that feels like they would pull that upset to stay in the playoff race.
Yeah,
it's
look,
just
this
like their
division
MO.
is wide open, right? Like
Yeah.
we with all the news that we got at quarterback in this division, we don't know, right? It's just the health of these other teams. And Cincinnati is kind of like in that middle spot. So the Steelers, again, for all of the stuff that we've seen early on in the season from them, they're still in the fold.
Yeah, the AFC wildcard race is wild. All right, gentlemen, we are just getting started here. This is just the tip of the betting iceberg. Let's see, TV's very own Jessie Coffield going to be on your TV going one-on-one with Amari Cooper here coming up in this show. The Cowboys star is facing the Giants today with a chance to clinch the division title, so you do not want to miss their heartwarming chit-chat. That's coming up next after this quick break.
Like her hair.
DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and today, new customers can bet $1 on any NFL game and get $100 if any points are scored. Plus, new fantasy players can play free for your share of millions this season when you make your first deposit. Use promo code SWEAT when you sign up.
Welcome back to The Sweat. I've got a very special guest joining me right now, Cowboys wide receiver Amari Cooper. Thanks for being here, man. It's an honor to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Amari, let's start with that big divisional win over the Washington football team last week. It was a tight one at the end, but you guys pulled it out. Now, obviously, every W is important, but how big was that one for your team and morale, really?
Yeah, I mean, every dub is important, like you said. It kind of means a little more when you have that divisional win against a rivalry like that. And they wanted us. They said they wanted us. They got us. We were just happy to pull away with the win. But, we can't get too up about that because we see those guys literally in another weekend, like another 2 weeks. So we'll just have to do it all over again.
So we heard you guys actually flew in your own heated benches for the game. That must have been the difference maker, right?
I mean, you can say that. I mean, listen, guys on the sideline were really, really happy about that because it was a previous game that we had. I won't say the opponent, but it was kind of coldish, and they wouldn't heat the benches up, so it was devastating.
Yeah, I can imagine. So Sunday was one of the first times in a while that your entire receiving core was intact for a game. You, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, you make up one of the best trios in the league when it comes to catching the football. I mean, how nice was it to have all of you on the field together, and what does that do for your team when you're all healthy?
Yeah, it does a lot. The three of us together, we're bigger threats. Like I said before, I play a lot of chess, and all the pieces are powerful, but they work in unison with each other. That's when they're the most powerful. So that's how I feel about our receiving core.
Were you a big Queen's Gambit guy? You play a lot of chess?
Yeah, I watched it. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
It was pretty good. It made me want to learn how to play chess. Well, it definitely helps when the guy throwing you the ball isn't too bad either. And Dak Prescott is putting up some great numbers this year. Obviously, he's coming off that ankle injury that ended his season in 2020. But what's your assessment of him this year? I mean, has he been held back at all by it?
Doesn't seem like it. Like typically when a guy comes off of an injury like that, he kind of eases his way into the season. But he came out blazing, and so it doesn't even feel like he got hurt. I don't know if it's the the technology we have nowadays, how fast guys are coming back from injuries, but it does say a lot about his will, his fight. I saw him in there because I had a minor surgery, so I was in the training room every day with him, and he was there before me. He was there before me. Every day just working really hard. And so I would attribute it to that as well.
So you've got the Giants this week going from one division rival to another. With the win over Washington, you guys really grabbed a stranglehold of the NFC East. But regardless of the standings, are you always extra motivated to beat a divisional rival?
Of course. It's just a little bit more fire in those games. They know us well. We know them well. You play the guys in your division so much that the guy lining up across from you, you kind of know him. Like you just learn more and more about base, and so that's why it means a little more. They're going to play a little bit harder. The game is going to be in itself a little bit harder because, like I said before, they know you, so they know what you want to do. They know what routes you like to run. It's just a bit harder, and that makes it more fun and more competitive.
Yeah, like you mentioned, you won the earlier matchup with the Giants 44-20. You had a touchdown in that game. But like you said, they know you, you know them. What adjustments do you anticipate them trying to make to slow down your passing attack in the rematch?
Yeah, I mean, we would have to put, extra emphasis on our game plan just because we know that they know us, so we'll have to change up some things. But at the same time, we keep some things the same because just because a team knows you, that doesn't mean they're going to be the most physical team. And we feel like we're going to out-physical any team we play. So, it's that balance right there. It's just mano a mano at the end of the day.
So I know most players, teams, and coaches take the one game at a time approach, but the number one seed in the NFC is still in reach for you guys. And with the new playoff format, only the number one seed gets that bye week, and that may come in extra handy after a 17-game regular season. So do you have that kind of in the back of your mind at all?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you talk to any player that's played on good teams, that's been to the postseason a lot, one of the first things they'll emphasize is how important that bye week is, because not only do you get a chance to rest your body, but just percentage wise, you have to play less games to get to that big game at the end, and so you're less likely to lose one game out of two than one game out of three, or whatever the numbers are. But yeah, so it's very important. It's obviously you can't escape it from being in your mind, but at the same time, you have to be able to compartmentalize and be where your feet are and focus on the task at hand, which is what we're trying to do.
Okay, well, before I let you go, your school, Alabama, is back in the college football playoffs. How do you like their chances to go all the way once again?
I love the chances. I'm always going to take Alabama for obvious reasons. I think they have a really good team. But my trust is in, obviously, the players, but Coach Saban. He just has that will to win. He knows how to win. He knows how to improvise, how to adapt to any situation, and how to overcome every situation as well. So I'm rocking with him.
All right, Amari, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with DraftKings. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
The Cowboys are definitely not underdogs today against the Giants, but dogs have been giving favorites fits all season. In fact, underdogs actually have a winning record this year, winning just over 53% of the games against the spread. 79 underdogs have just flat out won their games straight up. And even teams that go in as heavy dogs are winning at a surprising clip. Teams who are getting 10-plus points have 12 wins in 30 games against the spread on the year. So which underdog will knock off a favorite on today's slate? I don't really know, but maybe these guys do. Here are Steve Buchanan and Reed C. Fowler with their favorite dogs of the day in a little segment we like to call the Dog Pound. Steve, take it away.
Nice to see Jessie Coffield on our television screens. Kind of just disappeared at the front, but she's back.
Yeah, we need her. We need her to lead us into what this crazy, like Emerson did fantastic, but we need Jessie. She is the star of our show. She is our captain. Speaking of which, we have some underdogs to talk about. Shout out to all you dog lovers and dog parents out there, but we're talking about underdogs this week. Steve, I'm starting with the beak of the week, as I like to call it.
Wow, that sounds pretty awful.
Beak of the week, Atlanta Falcons. Now, this number has been fluctuating too. 9.5, plus 9.5 earlier in the week. It went down to 8. Now it's back up to 8.5 right now in the DK Sportsbook, going up against the San Francisco 49ers. Steve, if you had to guess how good the 49ers are at home covering, what would be your guess?
Oh, man, I'm gonna
answer for you. Not great, Bob. 2-4 ATS with a margin of victory, or a plus-minus, against a spread of 3.4, negative 3.4. So for whatever reason, they're not that great covering at home, and the Falcons are still in this. If we look at the defense, they're mathematically still in this. And if we take a look at how the Falcons match up against the 49ers, 49ers are great against the run. They're solid against the run, but they're not good against the pass. They have a lot of injuries in that secondary. Kyle Pitts, Cordell Patterson. Russell Gage has really stepped it up with Calvin Ridley not being with the team with mental health issues, and he's taking some time off. So all of these players are actually playing well. 9.5, 8.5, wherever you got it. I think that's a lot of points, even though the 49ers are the better team. I like the Falcons covering this one.
Wow, that was a lot of information for nothing. Let me tell you something. I have bet against the 49ers. I am tired of betting against the 49ers. Every time I bet against the 49ers, I have to watch George Kittle go up and down the field, catch everything that's thrown his way. It doesn't stop. The guy has magnets. Can we check his gloves for sticky stuff? Because some of the catches he makes, a little suspect. I'm not accusing him at all. I'm just saying how bad my luck has been against betting against the 49ers. Here's the thing I don't like about the 49ers, about the Falcons in this matchup. You can go downfield, like you said, against the 49ers through the air. Matt Ryan has taken some of the least amount of pass attempts of 20 yards or more in the league. 31 times he's only done this. That's in Daniel Jones territory, and Daniel Jones hasn't even been playing games. So Matt Ryan's just not going downfield against his team. That's where you can beat them, but that hasn't been the Falcons' game plan in this one. I get it, the Falcons are a healthier team than the 49ers, but the 49ers are just clicking. 30 points or more scored in 3 of their last 5 games. They're going to be able to score against the 49ers.
49ers, too. They're 9th lowest in pressure rating, though. The one that's the lowest is the Falcons. So that leads you to believe that both quarterbacks can be serviceable. But the 49ers don't really put a lot of pressure on the opposing quarterbacks. But still, I get your point. But go with the beak of the week with the Falcons.
All right, it's Christmas. Let me give you a winner, okay? Get some little extra couple gifts under the tree there. The Bengals, we talked about this. We love the Bengals. We both like the Bengals. I know Reed's not going to give me any pushback on this one, but here's what I like about the Bengals. They are 3-3 against the spread as underdogs. That's not that good. That's 500. That's breaking even. But as underdogs, they're covering by an average of over 8 points. So when they are covering, they're covering by a wide margin here. I mentioned earlier in the show, Denver does not play well when they are behind, when they have to have Teddy covers, as they like to say, throwing the ball. He's throwing a ton of interceptions. Like I mentioned, 8 of his 9 interceptions have come when the Broncos have been behind. The Bengals are the 8th best team in red zone offense. That's going to be a problem for the Broncos in this one. I like the Bengals to win this game outright. Forget about covering. Outright.
And the Bengals have to be up. They are such a good team when they're playing from ahead, when they get from behind. Zach Taylor, we all see it. we all see that the Bengals are one of the more balanced teams, and they have these high-powered offensive players like Jamar Chase, right? Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow looks good when he's healthy. He's still dealing with a little bit of a pinky injury. But when they're going, this offense can hum. We saw it earlier in the season, but for whatever reason, they want to stick to the run even if they're down. We know that's not the case if they're up. They can stick to the run. Joe Mixon can plant his foot into the ground and really get after it, but they have to be up. That's the only thing. And look, Denver's defense, they've just been banged up this whole time. They're playing great, but they've been banged up. They had so many injuries, and so I do like that. No pushback on the Cincinnati side. Love them, especially in a teaser leg, but even outright, talked about it earlier in the show, it's a solid bet.
So, with the holidays coming, we have to get some other people in the mix, get the B team involved. Adam Kaufman is talking to Nick Eatman. Let's toss that interview right now.
2 straight wins for the Dallas Cowboys. Let's get into it with Nick Eatman. I am Adam Kaufman. Nick, of course, has covered the team for the last couple decades for Dallas's website. And Nick, 9-4, 3-game lead in the division now. This thing is all but sealed. Playoffs right around the corner. And you've got Washington again in a couple of weeks. Giants next after, of course, we know blowing them out last time around back in mid-October. Any guarantees from the coaching staff this week?
I doubt it. I doubt that they'll play that game again. You can't just keep doing it every time, because then it won't matter. Like the guys that sit next to me at the stadium, I mean, I predict a kickoff return for a touchdown almost every time. So, whenever it happens, it's not going to be like, oh, cool, you finally got one. So no, I don't think you can. You gotta pick your spots there. I don't think McCarthy's gonna, do that again. I mean, this will probably be a tougher game than people think. Just division game on the road. They've won 3. I mean, they've had 3 road games in a row. So to win the first 2, it's probably going to be a challenge, I would think. But this defense keeps playing the way they played. I mean, it might be hard for anyone to beat them right now.
When it's been a couple months since the last head-to-head matchup, obviously injuries come into play, the COVID situation, everything else. Anything you can take from that last meeting going into this one?
Not really. I mean, even their coordinator, Jessie Garrett's no longer with them, and so I think Barkley played for like 5 minutes or something like that, and then he left. So they were very depleted on the offense, and I just think the way the defense has been here for the Cowboys, even the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's just different. You got Tank Lawrence, you got Gregory, you got Micah Parsons, of course, and just the way that they're kind of playing together, it's gonna be tough for anybody to really get a good read on how where they're coming from and all that. So I think you can throw that out the window, but still there's some, they're familiar with each other enough that I think it'll be a pretty close game.
You've mentioned the defense a couple times. Let's talk about that group. Of course, against Washington, which, as we know, I mean, the football team is inferior this year, at least to what the Cowboys have done, but still 4 sacks, 4 takeaways, defensive touchdown. Is this just becoming a weekly expectation at this point?
Yes. Yeah, I think it is. I mean, 4 turnovers is a lot, but I mean, the sacks, the pressure, I mean, they're really doing a nice job. Now, I mean, you're not going to face Taysom Hill and Taylor Heineke every week. This week against the Giants, you're probably going to face that type of quarterback. But when the playoffs come, you got some guys down the stretch that are going to be, better quarterbacks than that. But as it stands right now, I think the linchpin of it all is Micah Parsons, just what he can do, where he lines up. You have to notice where he is at all times. And I think it's created such a weapon for defense. And you really don't talk about weapons that much, but on defense, but he's been that and more.
The offense, as we know, has been kind of stagnant in recent weeks. You look at Dak Prescott, the quarterback, of course, he has struggled 3 out of his last 4 games. You've got 4 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. The completion percentage is down to just 64%. It's not great, obviously. What's the problem, Ben?
Well, there's a lot of problems there. And I think it does start with Dak. It's with him. It's the offensive line. Him and the receivers have not been on the same page. I mean, I do think it all stems back from the offensive line just being so inconsistent, not providing that push that we're used to seeing. But make no mistake, Dak has been off. He has not been himself since he came back from the calf injury. And, he's had 1 game, I think, where they played really well against Atlanta, but, that's not a very good barometer, I don't think. And he hasn't hit his targets as much. he seems like he's a little shaky with his decision to run, and then when he does run, it's not always pretty. I mean, it just hasn't. It's just been off, and I wish I had a better answer for you. I think it's a little bit of everything. Not having a consistent running game doesn't help, but he signed the contract he signed to be the leader, to be the guy that would carry this team, and he really hasn't done that in these last 3 or 4 games. We thought he would be the best thing that they do, and that's not really been the case. It doesn't mean he can't turn it around. I think he can, and I think they will, but it's just it's been just a little bit off.
As for that run game, Ezekiel Elliott, this is 5 straight games, Nick, that he hasn't even touched 50 yards, let alone flirted with 100. Is it the injury that we've talked about in the past? Is it underperforming? Is it usage? I mean, what's the main thing here?
Well, I think it goes back to the offensive line. I just don't think that they are a team that's going to knock anyone off the ball. And if Dak isn't going to play better on his side and really make teams beat you, then they're not going to run the ball. They're going to keep stacking the line the way it is. And he's not healthy. Zeke isn't. He's been limping around. I thought he was healthy for about a quarter on Sunday, and then all of a sudden he couldn't. He just was limping. I mean, he finished the game, but he's not himself right now. And I still credit that offensive line. I think they need to make a switch. I don't know if they will, but I do think they need to make a switch and go back to left guard Connor Williams. They were running the ball better with him. He had some penalties, but at this rate, I think you take some of those penalties just the way that they've been functioning on the offensive line.
The offense as a whole, this is still the second-ranked scoring offense in the entire NFL. We know the names. We rattle them off week after week. We know what kind of talent they have there, especially when they're healthy. But you can't help but look at what's happened or maybe not happened in the red zone. They're 1 for 6 last week against Washington. On the year, 24th ranked, 55% success rate, efficiency there in the red area, and only 33% on the road, which obviously wasn't helped by what happened last week in Washington. So what does that come down to ultimately? Because it's not like they've been missing personnel all season long. These guys I know have been a little injured, but for the most part, it's almost hard to juxtapose having a second-ranked scoring offense and a lower third red zone efficiency.
Well, can I say offensive line again? I mean, can I just keep throwing out that answer? Because that's what it is, especially in the red zone. And that's what it's been for the last 2 or 3 years. They can move the ball up and down with all these receivers. Play action helps because you have the threat of going deep. But when you get to the red zone, you got to be able to run the football. You got to be able to knock them back. And that's not what this offensive line does. So, that's been a problem. And I put the red zone issues mainly on the offensive line for not being able to run the ball consistently.
Just for giggles, Nick, let's get you out of here on this. Give me a fantasy stud against the Giants.
Let's go with Michael Gallup. I think, he's kind of been ready to kind of break out. He had a couple of nice plays in that game. One of them got called back. I could see him having a big game. Michael Gallup.
All right, back here in studio, and if it's, it is time to. Oh, hold on, I'm muted. Hold on. Unmuted. It is time now to stuff your brain with even more DFS advice. DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, Julian Edlow, they are unmuted as well. Welcome to a segment we like to call Pivotal Roles. We're about to find out if you guys are going to down the chalk at the following positions or if you are going to pivot off said chalk to another play. So at quarterback here, Kyler Murray, smash spot against Detroit, second highest price signal caller here on the slate. What you doing, Jeff?
I'm going to pivot. I mean, look, you've got Kyler Murray obviously coming in pretty expensive. And the thing is, I mean, it's Detroit, right? Obviously he's going to put up some points, but is it going to be one of those situations where they get into a back and forth shootout and he gets you like 35, 40 points? I really feel like Kyler's ceiling here is kind of capped around 30 points. And at that point, I think you need to pivot down. And I think Joe Burrow at 6,100 is a player who could get you 24, 25 points. And with the big price gap in between, I like Joe Burrow. He's going to be low owned. Denver's defense is good, but they've allowed some big passing games to players like Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, over 300 yards. I think Burrow will be able to put up some points here. And at the very least, with the price cost between those two, I think Burrow is a good low and pivot for big fields this week.
Yeah, Bengals need this one. Expect him to be airing it out. Julian, you're going to the most expensive dude at this position.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jeff is onto something. I think that it's easy to pivot down to go to the 6,100 or less, which is Burrow, because we have that big name, big chunk of guys that are just no longer on this slate in that price point in between. I just think with Kyler, we all have the same expectation here. If this is a blowout and they just start handing the ball off, it could be an off week for Kyler Murray when it comes to fantasy. So for Josh Allen, again, 2 touchdown spread here, but the Bills need this. Like, I cannot see the Bills taking their foot off the gas here. They're going to put points up, and it's going to come through Josh Allen because the Bills simply just do not run the ball. He had 42 DraftKings points last week in that comeback against the Panthers, against the Bucs that fell short. And, going into next week against New England, the Bills have to have this. I think that running the ball, passing the ball, Josh Allen will find a way to get it done.
Pierce, you're going $600 cheaper than Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'll pivot to Aaron Rodgers. With all the volatility and uncertainty, why not just play the guy that's been scoring over 30 DK fantasy points each game over the last 3 games, averaging 344 passing yards, 3 touchdowns per game? We don't know what to expect today across the league, so why not take the guy that has the highest floor and seems like the safest play against a Baltimore pass defense that's been pretty bad this season and has been absolutely decimated by injuries.
Yeah, basically without all of their top corners, from the second highest priced quarterback to the second highest priced running back. That's going to be Ezekiel Elliott, $7,300 at the Giants. Looks like, Jeff, you're the only one eating the chalk here. Please explain to us why.
Well, I mean, it's just the safety reason. I mean, you look at the running back position, and Najee Harris, that's fine. I mean, he's going to get some receptions, also going against like the toughest rush defense in the league right now. And then we've just got a bunch of guys that are out or banged up or in, tandem spots. Tony Pollard is really injured. He's barely active today. He's probably going to have his load managed. Ezekiel Elliott's playing the Giants. They're over double-digit favorites. He's going to be getting the workload. And again, I think you do pay down at quarterback because I think there's some players in that 6K, 5K range who will be able to get you at least enough points to save some cash and really be good value plays. And then you pay up for the safety of Ezekiel Elliott. I'm not really enamored with how Zeke has played this year, but in this spot on this slate, I think you just take the 7,300, which is actually really cheap for a main carry running back in a double-digit favorite spot, and you move on.
All right, Jules, you're once again going with the most expensive player there. Jeff mentioned Harris, and also mentioned, though, one reason that keeps him, that sets him apart from the other dudes is because of his receiving ability.
Yeah, so, I mean, with Elliott, again, we don't have much to choose from on this slate, so I don't hate him. But again, the chalk running back is a guy that hasn't rushed for over 70 yards in a game since week 5. Now, that did happen to come against the Giants, so the matchup does make sense. It is a spot he can get it again. But Zeke, 12 carries for 45 yards last week, and that was without Tony Pollard. Now he'll be limited in some capacity coming back. I just think Harris, the pass-catching ability, Najee Harris, this is $7,800 for the Steelers, the pass-catching ability and the workload, like even when it's not there, Baltimore, 21 carries for 71 yards, and he also had five targets. I just think Najee Harris is the only running back on this slate maybe that we can count on for 20-plus touches. And because we're so thin with all the games getting canceled, I think that's worth investing in.
All right, Pierce, you are going to America's team. Urban Meyer is gone, and you clearly expect James Robinson to have more than 4 yards rushing.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's averaged 4.8 yards per carry on the season, so you just probably give him the ball a little more, especially against a Texans team that allowed over 130 to Rashad Penny, over 130 to the Jets trio of terrible running backs. This is a great spot. He's incredibly cheap. The Jaguars are favored somehow, and they're not going to blow anyone out. I imagine you're just going to see a heavy dose of James Robinson. Maybe we're reading a little bit too much into the narrative, but the coaching staff seems like they're going to give the ball to him. The betting line seems like they're going to give the ball to him. And speaking of game scripts, I worry that if the Cowboys get a lead like last week, you see Corey Clement get 31 snaps. I see them taking it easy with Ezekiel Elliott with the lead. I don't think he's going to get a heavy workload in that game, so I would much rather take the even more chalkier James Robinson.
All right, with the Rams game being postponed, that leaves Devontae Adams as the most expensive wide receiver. He's going to be the chalk today, $8,900 at Baltimore. We already mentioned how banged up that Ravens secondary is. But Jeff, you're like, yo, I'm going to save you $1,400. I'm not gonna eat the chalk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was like. I was like, yo, like, don't play Devontae Adams, peeps. Just like Jesse Pinkman on Breaking Bad or something. But I mean, look, it's much like Devontae Adams is very similar to Zeke. It's fine to pay up for him. You get that safety. He's probably going to get 8 or 9 targets. I just see that Green Bay-Baltimore game, and it really feels like a situation where Green Bay could get up 14-0, run the ball a bit, and the game could just be over. And Devontae Adams has like 80 yards, and you're like, well, that didn't work out too well. I like Deonte Johnson. I like his upside just as much as Devontae Adams' upside in this spot. Pittsburgh is going to have to throw the ball here. They're not going to be able to run against the Tennessee defense that's given up 2.8 yards per carry over the last 3 attempts. You've got Chase Claypool on the other side of the field, more interested like making Instagram reels. He's going to get like 3 targets. Deonte Johnson has got 61 targets in his last 5 games. He's going to have a big game here, and I think at 7,500, you're getting very similar upside to Devontae Adams this week.
All right, Pierce, you are going with Adams, though, a guy who scored 33.5 DraftKings points in 2 of his past 3 games.
Yeah, I definitely will eat the chalk in this spot. It's tough to run against the Ravens. I know Jeff thinks that they're going to get up on these guys and just run the ball, but if you want to beat the Ravens, it's through the air. And we've seen teams blow out the Ravens, the Bengals, for example, and Joe Burrow threw for 400 yards passing in that game. Several times this season, the Ravens allowed 400 yards passing. That's when they had their starters. They're now starting third-string cornerbacks. Their starters were terrible at missing tackles. Their starters were terrible at allowing big plays. What are you going to get here? Devontae Adams is primed for a massive game. I have no problem paying up for him right here.
Jules, you're also eating the chalk here. I mean, he's a guy who gobbles up targets, and he's one of the best receivers around the goal line.
Yeah, I mean, the real answer is that I want both of these guys in my lineup, but Deonte Johnson is somebody that I'll talk about later in the show. As for Adams, while I want to eat the chalk on him, Pierce touched on most of it, but, like, just think about that Bears game on Sunday Night Football. The Packers had the ball, commanding lead. They drive all the way down the field late in the game, like 8-minute drive, eating up clock. And what do? Rather than hand it to A.J. Dillon or Aaron Jones for the touchdown, they throw another slant to Devontae Adams for his second score of the game. Even late in the fourth quarter, even with a double-digit lead, like, they just keep feeding him. So like Pierce said, I'm not afraid of Green Bay's running game. I think they're just going to keep going to Adams, and Baltimore has no secondary right.
All right, let's go to tight end, guys. George Kittle, $7,500 at home against Atlanta. Doesn't look like any of you are going to be eating the chalk here. So, Jules, who do you want to go to?
Yeah, I mean, it's good chalk. There is some blowout potential here. And the real answer is usually that if we're going to be spending up for all these guys, we're probably punting on tight end. But I will give you a pivot name, and it would be Mark Andrews, just because I think that Baltimore is going to be playing from behind in this game. And we saw last week that the quarterback position, if Lamar Jackson is out, like we're assuming, Tyler Huntley had no problem with Andrews. The combination of the 2 quarterbacks, he caught all 11 of his targets for 115 yards and a touchdown. So Baltimore playing from behind with a quarterback that still knows how to get him the ball. I like that combination for $6,400.
Jeff, we're talking about a tight end here in George Kittle, who has scored at least 37 DK fantasy points in 2 straight games, one hitting the 42 mark. You don't want anything to do with that today. You don't think he repeats that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's a little bit scary to fade George Kittle, but there's a combination of factors here. I mean, first of all, Deebo Samuel practiced in full. I fully expect him to see more targets now that he's practiced for a full week. You've got Brandon Ayuk. It's one of those things with San Francisco. The targets could just shift back to the wide receiver position, especially against Atlanta here. And George Kittle's price is way up. I like going to Mike Gesicki, who is kind of in a situation that Kittle was in like 2 weeks ago. Jalen Waddle, obviously, the COVID thing. There's more targets up for grabs here, and he's playing the Jets. Mike Gesicki's playing the Jets. They allowed Dallas Goedert to go for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns on 5 catches last week. Mike Gesicki profiles as a good receiving tight end. You can see a very similar game here. And at $5K, it's just too tempting not to pay down.
All right, Pierce, you're going with a guy who's $3,000 less than George Kittle, which is not a surprise for you.
Well, I didn't go absolute punt here.
Surprising.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, Julian already hinted at the philosophy, which is to punt tight end and hope you hit the lotto and nail the touchdown. Well, if you pay just a little bit more at $4,500, you get Freiermuth and exponentially increase the probability of getting that touchdown. He's got 7 touchdowns this season, second most among tight ends, 6 in the last 7 games. We're trying to get a touchdown. Why not get the guy who finds the end zone more than basically every other tight end.
All right, awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of money that you would typically spend at tight end for you, Pierce. Lovely work, guys. Still to come, though, we will take a look at Sunday and Monday night's games and our primetime picks. But first, here's Gary Vaynerchuk to tell you a little bit about a weekly podcast that he hosts here for DraftKings. Check it out.
Hey guys, it's Gary V. Make sure you tune in to DraftKings YouTube channel for Die Hard Dialogue, where each week we do a listener league, DFS, and give away some of my highly valuable football cards, and we boost one prop bet. Die Hard Dialogue, DraftKings YouTube channel.
DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL, and today, new customers can bet $1 on any NFL game and get $100 if any points are scored. Plus, new fantasy players can play free for your share of millions this season when you make your first deposit. Use promo code SWEAT when you sign up.
Welcome back to the show, and take a look at a very crowded NFC playoff picture. We have three teams at the top at 10-3, with Green Bay currently holding the tiebreaker over Arizona and Tampa because of the better win percentage in conference games. The Cowboys, Rams, 49ers, and Washington football team round out the rest of the teams currently in a postseason position. But then there are a whole slew of teams at 6-7. These last few weeks of the season, they should be a fun one. Okay, let's break it down with DraftKings contributors Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich. Gentlemen, you're going to give us your primetime picks. We're going to start with one of those 6-7 teams, the Saints, as they visit Tom Brady and the Bucks on Sunday night. Saints could be without, or they will be without, head coach Sean Payton. He tested positive for COVID-19, and he is going to miss the game. So, Jeff, your favorite DFS play is going to be who?
I'm going to go with Traquan Smith here. Just play a little bit of a hunch. Traquan obviously didn't start the season well. I mean, he's injured and banged up, but you know, he's gotten some pretty good targeting from Taysom Hill over the last few games. It's just a spot where I really feel like the Saints are obviously going to have to throw the ball a little bit more. Tampa plays at such a fast pace, and Tampa's projected to be ahead. Again, you look at this Tampa secondary, they're good, but they do allow the odd big game here and there. Russell Gage went for a massive game against them a couple games ago. And again, I mean, I just feel like someone on this New Orleans offense, some receiver, is going to kind of come up with a big game. And I think it's going to be Traquan Smith. At 8,700, you can play him in the captain for pretty cheap. It's a really boomer bust play. Obviously, anyone to do with that passing offense is, but I kind of like him in this game to come through with some good garbage time action.
Yeah, over the past 3 weeks, he's hauled in just 9 of 15 targets. So hopefully he booms for you, Jeff. Pierce, you're going with Chris Godwin. He's had 100-plus yards receiving the last 2 games. Pretty good.
Yeah, according to Reed T. Fowler of DK Nation Playbook, he's received 32 targets and 248 yards in his last 2 games. Second most yards after the catch this season. But what I really like here is the narrative of Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore. A couple seasons ago, they got in a fight on the field. Since then, Lattimore has limited or basically shut down Evans. I don't know if Evans is going to completely disappear in this game, but I would imagine that some of these targets are going to get funneled over to Godwin as if he's not getting enough already. I think he's just probably the most explosive player in this game.
All right, Pierce, how about your favorite bet for Saints-Bucks?
Over 45.5. Tom Brady at home has been dynamic. He has too many weapons. They're going to put points on the board. The Saints defense is just not the Saints defense that we've been accustomed to. Before their easy win against the Jets on that 5-game losing streak, they were allowing 30 points per game. And I also like the way that the Saints offense sets up in a blowout. You got Taysom Hill running around, scrambling against a prevent defense, going to get some garbage yards and garbage points. Same thing with Alvin Kamara, running draws, check down passes. They're going to get 15 to 20 points in garbage time, and this should easily go over the 45.5.
Well, speaking of Taysom Hill scrambling around, Jeff, you like that bet?
Yeah, I got to say, I really do like the over in this spot, too. I think you'll see this total rise. So if you're interested, I'd get on it now. But Taysom Hill, over 41.5 rushing yards. He's averaged 11 carries in his last 2 games. We're basically asking him to average like 4 yards per carry here. He's averaged well over that the last 2 games. And yeah, Tampa, a good defensive line. They got some speed, but they've also allowed the 6th most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks. It's just because there's garbage time. Tampa's offense scores so much. There's all this prevent defense to go. Taysom Hill can't really throw the ball. When it's garbage time, he runs instead. I think he'll hit this one easy. I'm surprised to see this low a total. I like the over on that rushing total.
All right, let's head to Monday night. Top DFS play for Vikings, Bears. Jeff, you're going to go with David Montgomery. He's seen 16 targets in his last 2 games.
Yeah, and that's, that kind of speaks to just David Montgomery's usage. Like, he's kind of game flow proof, right? As we saw last week. He maybe isn't as, it's the Bears offense, so maybe he isn't as, good a garbage time player as some other running backs when they get in that situation. But this matchup against Minnesota is very, very good. They do not have a good linebacker crew. They allowed, their bottom 5 in terms of yards per carry against. And I like the way the Bears offense came out and played last week. And if we do get into a situation where the Bears are ahead, Montgomery could just run right through this Minnesota Vikings defense. They've allowed 7 games of 70-plus yards to opposing running backs this year. If he gets those short line works too, I think there's a lot of upside here for David Montgomery this week, and he's a lot cheaper than Dalvin Cook. I like captaining him here in this game.
All right, Pierce, give us your favorite DFS play.
Justin Fields, he is improving. Last 3 full games, 29, 21, 19 fantasy points. Those games also coincide with new play calling. 74 rushing yards per game in those games. Now, he's facing a lot of pressure still, a lot of sacks or blitzes and hits against him, but there's been a change. He's scrambling. You look at his scramble numbers at the early part of the season to now, he's moving more, he's running more, he's making changes, he's adapting. And you look at the last game against Green Bay. What's Green Bay good at? Limiting big passes. Well, that's what Justin Fields is. He's a guy that goes downfield. He had to adjust what he was. He had to approach and go with a different adaptation, and he went to a 4 intended air yards per carry game. Completely changed who he was, had some success. You'd like to see those developmental changes. I think he's going to continue to progress in this game.
All right, Pierce, bring us home with your favorite bet for this one.
It's going to be Minnesota minus 5.5. The Vikings 7-5 against the spread, not great, but you look at the Bears last 8 games, 1-7 against the spread. It's not a good team. They've got all kinds of injuries on the defensive side. Khalil Mack, a lot of people on their offensive line, their linebackers. Everybody is out. The defensive backs, they've lost 5 more of those. It's just a tough spot. I think the offense is getting better, but they're not consistent. They're going to turn the ball over. I just, into this game, I don't think the Bears are going to be close.
Jeff, you do not agree.
No, I don't agree. It's so weird to hear Pierce talk up Justin Fields and, they're improving, and then he wants to take the Vikings on the road -6. It's too big a line for me to take the Vikings here. And look, neither of these teams are good ATS. You look at all situations over the last 3 years. the Vikings have not really been good under Mike Zimmer. And I know the Bears aren't good in similar situations with Matt Nagy, but I think that you've got an improving Bears team who gained some confidence by going up against the Packers last week. And again, I really think the Bears offense can attack this Minnesota Vikings defense on the ground. And I think that's just going to keep the game close enough. Maybe Minnesota ekes it out in the end, but I think at 6 points, you got to take the Bears at home.
All right, thanks for all your help today, guys. We are minutes away from kickoff, which means it's time for me to throw it over to the master of moisture, Emerson Lotzia, for working up a sweat.
Great intro. Mother of Dragons. Jessie Coffield.
First of her name.
How about it, huh? All right, back with Reed, Steve, and virtual Julian. We are working up a sweat. Last minute DFS takes for the Sunday slate. What do you got, Steven?
So obviously we just got news that Lamar Jackson is officially out in this game. The ownership on Huntley is going to be next to nothing. Like right now, his projected ownership is at 3.6%. So if you want to try to pivot off of somebody and try to get a low-owned quarterback in your lineup this week, Huntley's probably that guy right now, and he's probably in a better position than Lamar Jackson was with that bum ankle. Huntley can run, he can throw. I think this is actually a pretty sneaky spot for Huntley.
Green Bay Packers defense may be a good play.
That too.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, like that yes, the Packers DST is definitely a play that you can, like we talked about, they're getting people back. But I'm actually going that same game, and a quarterback who's going to be rostered even lower projection-wise than Huntley is Aaron Rodgers. And I look, so what I'm working up a sweat is paying down at quarterback because you can, right? That's the one position that you can, and you usually pay down both at quarterback and defense. I want to pay up in those because those are the things that I trust relatively the most on this slate. The guys talked about throughout the show, running backs, wide receivers are all out because of either COVID or postponed games. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers is probably one sure thing, quote unquote, as close as that we have on this slate. Getting Rodgers, stacking them with Adams, even though that's going to be expensive, is something that I want to do as opposed to maybe paying down for 2 against the Jets. Miami, they don't have Jalen Waddle. They were dealing with some COVID issues. That scares me a little bit. But Aaron Rodgers is the guy I'm working towards. And that Packers.
Yeah, for sure. Jules, what are some things you may be rethinking here before lock?
Something that I'm thinking about is that if you think your lineup stinks, it probably does, and that's fine. Just play it anyway, because we're all working with the same slate here. Stuff has been taken from all of us, all of these games that are off the board, all of these players that are in COVID protocols. We're all working with the same slate. It's fine. If you don't love your lineup, just play it. You'll do fine.
You guys want to make it rain?
I do.
Because apparently everyone's lineups like really suck out there. So let's
go.
go.
I just made one. It stinks.
Yeah, dude, I believe it. I have seen you play DFS. It's a shocker that you're even on this show. So go ahead, Jules. Hook us up with your DFS play. Is going to absolutely make it rain cash for lineups today, or at least one you believe has the ability to do that.
Thank you, Emerson. It's going to be Deonte Johnson on the Steelers. Jeff spoke about him earlier. We talked about him in the pivot section. I want him and Davante Adams in the same lineup, but Johnson, good matchup against Tennessee, heavily targeted, double digits almost every week. No reason he shouldn't have a huge game here.
Yeah, dude, he's racked up at least 10 targets in all but 2 games this season, seen at least 13 in 6 of them. Safe play, it feels like. Davante Adams also feels like a good one.
You know what? I'm just going to say Davante Adams is a great pick. I need to hear reads. So
yeah,
just Davante Adams.
This is interesting, folks. We have our show notes right here in front of us, and I'm like, wait a minute. Your make it rain play is
the Dallas Special Teams and Defense.
Oh,
the Dallas
my
DST.
gosh.
And the reason why, people, is look, it's week 15. Everything up is down, left is right. It's crazy out there. Julian says his picks suck, and everyone's lineups suck, and play it anyway. Why not go with one of the best defenses right now, a guy who's probably going to be defensive rookie of the year, not probably, he is, and potentially defensive player of the year. They're getting healthier. Their secondary is healthy. They have one of the best ball hawks in Trevion Diggs. Right? And you get a Giants offense who's one of the worst by PFF grade. No, actually, they are the worst right now. This iteration of the Giants offense is the worst in the NFL per PFF. And so when you have a Dallas defense right now who does extremely well creating turnovers, why not put them in your lineup even though they're expensive? So let's get a little weird here, guys.
Yeah, $3,600. I will say they've scored 22 DK fantasy points 2 of the last 5 games. One of those was 17.
Interesting.
Dolphins score more points.
And they scored 11 against the Giants back in week 5.
That's fine.
All right, everybody, that's a show, folks. We're back here in Bally Sports Networks next Sunday at high noon. That is the day after Christmas, so you will smell like beef and cheese. Like you do.
I didn't know what to work that day.
We also do this show Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time to noon on the DraftKings YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter pages. Have a great holiday week, everyone.